down pressure. You want down, but you don't want forward. So forward is what happens to most people, right? They go to put the paddle in, they'll drive the top hand forward this way, and then they rotate the blade like this. So if you look at the shaft here, you don't want the shaft to be pivoting there. What you want the shaft to be pivoting to me is up here, right? So you go in and you actually get this pivot. And if you have this pivot, it happens quick and you lose water. So that's what makes that stroke fast.
All right, we're here with John Puakea, Canoe Master. We're going to talk about the paddle stroke. So Robert and I, Robert from Blue Planet and I, have this other show, and then he mentioned that you were talking about how you were working on your catch for 1 year.
Yeah, I did. When I was paddling K1s, Olympic sprint boats, I spent 1 year, I said, okay, I'm going to take 1 year and really master my catch. So that was all I focused on for the year.
And that would be the most important thing?
It's the first part of the stroke. So if you don't have that right, then it's hard to get the rest right. That's kind of how I look at it.
So how would you explain the paddle stroke then for you? Like for somebody beginning or even an intermediate person?
You know, as time has gone on, things have changed a little bit. And when Tahiti came into the picture with the way they teach, which we've been lucky enough to be around a lot, in Newport with some of the better coaches from Tahiti, they changed some of our theories on how you pull through the water, what you do, but the mechanics and everything using the body is pretty much the same as, I always say, paddling is paddling. Like, it doesn't matter what craft you're in. You know, you set the blade, you load the blade, you put pressure, and you wait for that craft to get there. So the slower the craft, the slower the paddle is going to come through the water. That's how I look at it.
And then, so if I am, like, let's say you're a beginning student, what would you tell me the most important things to learn right off the bat?
The first thing to learn, I think the most important thing to learn in the beginning is the catch. Because if you have cavitation, then your paddle's slipping.
What does that mean?
Cavitation means the water is moving around the paddle and it's not locking the blade in the water. So if you don't, in a way it's kind of simple. If you don't set that blade completely, and the way I see it is, and you have solid water on both sides of this paddle, it will not lock. So if you start to sink your paddle and pull it before it's in, then you create an air pocket back here and you give the water somewhere to go. So now the paddle's going to move, the water's going to run around it.
Okay.
If you set the whole blade before you pull it, then it's locked. Then the craft has to move.
So when you think about the stroke, are you thinking about in stages? Like the catch is one stage?
I do. I think about the catch and the pressure as being the one stage, the first part of the stroke.
Okay.
Like down and load at the same time. And then I try to engage the body and put a lot of, I like to say, pressure on the blade instead of pulling the blade. Because it's all about feel.
So what's the difference then? What does that mean?
Pulling the blade is when usually people force it. You'll see them go in and then they kind of rip it.
Okay.
You know, getting on the blade and locking it and just having all your core and all your weight on that paddle and all your muscles working kind of constricted, and holding the paddle in that place and moving yourself to there is different to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so that would be pulling.
That would be the stroke phase, I would call it.
Stroke. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is right and what is wrong? Like what do you see most people doing that's kind of wrong? And then what would be the change for that?
Most people try to get a stroke rate up instead of have a speed of the craft go up and then the stroke rate match it. So that's, to me, the first mistake people make. And a lot of people will try to increase the stroke rate in the water instead of just getting rid of the air time to increase the stroke rate. So what you want to do is, the faster you go, you still want to be just as long in the water. And sometimes you'll see people when they do a sprint, they'll take a little off the back of the stroke, but you want to increase the air time, because the air time is when you're slowing down, right? So, I mean, you want to stay very efficient in the water and just speed up how quick you get to the front. As soon as the paddle comes out, you're slowing down. There's no glide. Like in Outriggers or K1, there's glide, rowing shell, there's glide. Outriggers, one man's, stand-up especially. If you come out and you're waiting and trying to recover in the air and not get to the front quicker, you're slowing down.
So you're talking about only really two stages then, the catch and the kind of the stroke, and then the return.
Yeah. Kinda, yeah.
Right? So, but you're saying on this to make your return quicker.
Yeah.
Oh. Whereas before it was, the return was longer and the stroke was quicker because you're using more
power. Now we're a little bit opposite now, right? So now we're thinking, you grab the water, you load it extremely well, you're using all your muscles, you're waiting for the boat to come by, you're using your body and sitting up with it as you come a little bit in the canoes. And at the end, instead of trying to get a lot of power out the back to create this glide, we're actually saying, okay, in the back is a little bit easier, and we're gonna get to the front quicker and add more pressure sooner.
So what kind of pressure are you talking about? Like down pressure, front pressure?
And that's
What
a
is
really
it?
good question, because on the catch you want a lot of down pressure. You want
Okay.
down, but you don't want forward. So forward is what happens to most people, right? They go to put the paddle in, they'll drive the top hand forward this way,
Oh.
and then they rotate the blade like this. So if you look at the shaft here, you don't want the shaft to be pivoting there. What you want the shaft to be pivoting to me is up here, right? So you go in and you actually get this pivot. And if you have this pivot, it happens quick and you lose water. So that's what makes that stroke fast.
So show me the wrong stroke.
Okay, so
And the right
wrong
stroke.
would be in and forward in this way.
Okay.
Would be pulling like this. And right would be down and slow and fast. This way.
Primarily because of the angle.
A lot of it's because of the angle of the blade. If the angle of the blade turns over, then you start slipping in the water.
So does that mean you're using different muscles more?
If the angle of the bait's wrong, you're not using that many muscles. And the paddle comes through the water easier. When the paddle feels heavy and locked, I say cement, mud, and the pull is slow because there's so much pressure on that blade that you can't pull it quick, then it's hard. Whenever you're going fast, it's hard. Like a lot of people look over, you go, wow, that guy's cruising but going fast. He's not cruising. He's being efficient. He's got a lot of load on that blade. He's got a lot of weight on it. Yeah.
So it should feel like you're going slower.
In the water, patience in the water is one of the main things you want to remember.
Right.
Load the blade, lots of pressure, and be patient. And when you learn that, it's funny because you can literally get your stroke, your heart rate way up, and boat speed, board speed way up with that.
Oh.
It's pretty good.
See, Bill's over here listening too.
Yeah.
He's watching that.
It's like
What do
I
you think of
shared
that?
with you, He's my mentor. It's one thing Johnny reminded me is a lot of it is trying to translate confidence into the fact that you're taking a slower rate of stroke, but you have to have confidence that that's going to propel you.
Because it
faster.
feels like you're not doing anything. Or less, you're doing less.
Actually, it feels like you're doing more.
more.
Oh, it just
Again,
looks like you're doing less.
As you said, pressure. As Johnny said, pressure or load on the blade. If you're filling the front of your blade with a load of water and you're really trying to balance your pull with your drive down, kind of like a 50-50, so that one of the analogies he gave me is instead of having a piece of string at the bottom of the blade and yanking so that it rotates like that, let's say the string were at the middle of the shaft, so the whole blade goes this way, right? So you drive down and come back, and it's going to cause your whole body to come up. That's going to put a tremendous load, tremendous pressure. You're going to need your entire body to pull it back. The rate, therefore, will be slower. But if you have a full cavity of water propelling backward, a quicker recovery, you're going to allow yourself to propel your canoe faster.
So does that feel like you're using your back more?
Actually, the load when you go down in the front and drive in the front is coming from your opposite lat a lot,
Okay.
and pressing down, and then you'll constrict your core. And the rest of the stroke, at the end of the stroke, is usually just your body pulling your arms up. Right? So you're down, pressure down, lats, opposite lat, pecs, muscles in here, pressing down hard and slow. So I kind of say it's like a 2-point. It's like a 1-1000, 2-1000, and then pull with your body. And let your body pull your arms. Don't let your arms do the work.
Try show me like a couple strokes at the cadence we can hear. Or make him do it.
Okay.
Good.
To me, it's like this. This would be the stroke.
Okay.
Like this. Okay. And this would be a pretty fast boat speed.
Wow.
At that. You could go pretty fast. Say, in a one-man, at 42 strokes a minute, I can be going pretty fast.
Because that actually, the cadence looks slower than a lot of times, right?
Slow in the water.
Yeah. Oh.
The idea is to just catch the craft before it slows down. And when you set the blade in low, to give it all your energy and wait for it to get there.
Because as a beginner, the tendency is to just pick up your pace.
Yeah, and that's usually people. Then it's like a car and you're in the grass and it's wet, you're just slipping the tire.
Oh. It's all
We
different.
can go all day on this stuff.
Wait, so tell me, does this apply to a stand-up then?
I mean, Travis and I have been
This would
talking
apply
about
to
this for a
stand-up?
few months, and he's trying so hard right now to incorporate all this. And he and I talk, and he's saying it's working so much better for me. And you see him; he's getting better results now.
Wait, one.
Yeah, he's going faster. The energy is a
He
little
won the
bit
Molokai
less.
to Oahu, so,
Oh, right.
you know.
No, and the first thing he said, we talked about after he and I talked, and he said, I would find myself going back to my old stroke and remind myself, no, back to this, back to this, back to this. So he's one of the guys that you can see at a top level incorporating it and getting benefit from it.
Would the new stroke cause more pain on your body? Like
Less.
it would cause less pain in your body.
It's actually easier on your body because there's more momentum and more body weight being used. Yeah.
So it almost feels like you're working. It feels like you're working hard because you're like lifting weights.
Yeah.
More feeling,
The
right?
pressure is more, but the timing of the pressure and the way you, like before we used to teach, twist out, rotate, way out here, and then if you go too much, now you lose the down, you lose the body weight, right? Body weight is there if you're here. You go like this, now I'm off my weight, right? And then people would push and just pull with half their body, right? And by the way, it's not a new stroke. Tahitians have been doing this for 10 years. We're just late to catch on. They're using their whole body weight on the blade forward, pressing down a lot with the top hand, and then just coming up with the body. So, and then going forward fast and catching this boat soon enough.
So would that be advantageous for a heavier person then?
For everybody. It's for everybody, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Would that change the length of your paddle at all?
I don't think so. Length of the paddle is your torso, arm length, and how far you are off the water.
This gives us a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, and stand up too is, you're standing up, so that's a whole different way of measuring your paddle. And they're finding now, like guys are getting a little shorter, right? Everybody's going a little bit shorter. But also, the taller you are with your paddle, the more harder it is, especially in a stand-up because you have such a long shaft to the water. And then it's harder for you on your body. But the shorter you are, depending on the height of your board and your free board and how close you are to the water, and you have to bend a little more to get to the water, right? So kind of.
So would you
Toss-up.
adjust? You would adjust the stand-up stroke exactly the same, where you'd be leaning and so on. You don't think you would?
No, I wouldn't change it. I mean, stand-up has a whole different bunch of things in it, and most of it's from the hips down.
What do you mean?
Balance, leg placement, what your legs are doing, what your board's doing with your feet back and forth. There's all those things in stand-up. But as far as mechanics and paddling, no different.
But what about the board on the stand-up? Because most of the stand-up boards are kind of the planing hulls instead of displacement hulls.
You don't plane until you're going over 13 miles an hour. That's the reality of it.
32 miles per hour?
13 miles,
13.
12, 13 is usually when anything will plane.
Uh-huh.
I should be careful saying this because a lot of people think that they're planing and stand up, but you're not really. I mean, the board, every craft comes up a little bit, but they're not planing on those things.
But that means, because on the...
And I don't know if we should even put this in there because I hate to contradict people.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has their own opinion, don't you think? But then before it was like, if you have the displacement hull, then you could do that because the thing would kind of come back up and so on, whereas the planing would tend to
I believe
compress
anything
no?
under 12 miles an hour is displacement.
Oh,
Right? I mean, outriggers, we tried to do planing hulls on them. They're actually slower. But stand-up, you have balance.
uh-huh,
I mean, if you go displacement round hull, you're not going to be able to stand there.
right.
So you have to have a flat hull. You have to have a concave. And it's all about what is giving you less drag or more drag in one place. But you're dealing with balance. You're not dealing with just a hull. It's a whole different game.
Right,
Yeah,
but
and
you
it's-
would
I
keep
think
the
it's-
same stroke.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at the guys who are doing. I mean, Travis is doing really well. Danny's doing really well. T2, George Cronstead. And these guys are very, very good paddlers. They're not going to change that stroke when they get in the outrigger. It's going to be the same thing to every craft to go in there.
Uh-huh. Huh. So you think that Travis's change in the paddle stroke was the thing that made the difference in the multi?
Yeah. And I think if you ask him, he'll say the same thing.
Oh, interesting. And that can be applied for beginners as well as...
And if you learn it early, awesome. Even easier. Because for us, we have to change now and try to get better.
Is it complicated to learn or not really?
I think it's simpler.
Simpler?
It's more feel and less mechanics. Like
Okay.
back when we were teaching, 5-10 years ago, it was like, okay, do this, turn your body, rotate, move your wrists, move that. And now it's okay, body forward, grab the water, feel what's happening, feel the load. It's more of a feel and less mechanics than more mechanics and not thinking about feel.
Because before it was like people would talk about placing your paddle in like you were sticking in mud and then you're pulling a skateboard past it.
And
Now
then,
it's not.
It's the same theory as far as locking it in and moving past it. It's just that you're using more body weight and more efficiency now than you were muscle. Before it was more about mechanics and muscle, and I feel like now it's more about body weight and efficiency and leverage.
How much of your legs are you using in this?
Not as much as people thought before.
Because before it was like full on use your legs, right?
Yeah, and now it's not as much because now is what you're using more body weight in the front than leg drive.
What about on a stand-up? Same?
Stand up, you have legs involved because that's where you're connected. You're connected with your feet to the board.
Right.
Your legs are really, really important in stand up. What's happening. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. some more things to confuse us.
Yeah, you know, I do a lot of clinics now, and everybody looks at me like, that's the opposite. And I'm all like, yeah, it is, you know, but it's what's working now.
Progression,
So
right?
It is, it really is. Gotta keep up with the times, and I've been lucky enough to be around some of the best people and learn, you know.
Do you think that on your newest canoes, because you know they're advanced in shape and so on, that this kind of exponentially makes a difference?
It does, because with my canoes, they're a very round hull, and they're sensitive. And the rougher you paddle, the harder it is for it to go fast.
Oh.
And the cleaner and smoother you paddle, the faster the canoe goes. So if you're paddling really clean and smooth, you get less effort for more speed. But
Right.
if you really try to muscle the canoe, it's a sensitive boat, it'll rough it up and it doesn't like it. Sometimes they say it's like a teacher, you know, it's teaching you.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a lot
Yeah, it's a lot.
from the guru,
No,
Johnny Puakea.
just a lucky guy.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay. So the yellow has a yellow logo on it and yellow ABS edge.
Oh, okay.
And then the green is a 6-man paddle that or some of the bigger guys actually like it in the 1-man on a downwind. And we just did a green logo with a green ABS edge.
So both of them have ABS then?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And both of the blades are fairly thin.
They are. They're, you know, I mean, it's all manufactured pre-preg, carbon, and
It's foam core?
we're working on wood core in some of these
Uh-huh.
for the